On this episode of Game Shack, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I'm excited to pre-order the new Dragon's Lair game from Arcade1up, and 3 reasons why I'm not so excited. Coming up next. Hey everybody, it's JDV here for EvilGeniusEntertainment.com. Thank you for stopping by the Game Shack, the world's smallest arcade. One of the things that broke over the weekend was that Arcade1up announced that they're finally going to start taking pre-orders for Dragon's Lair starting in June. So when I first heard that Dragon's Lair was going to be released by Arcade1up way back in, I believe it was 2021 CES, maybe even 2020 CES. Anyway, it's been quite a while since they announced that they were going to release the cab. Subsequently, they had introduced a design of the cab where you would be using the cell phone or your cell phone as sort of a secondary screen to show you the score and everything. That was immediately just hell rained down upon them by the fans for that, because it doesn't make sense, particularly for a company like Arcade1up that has really made its bones by replicating as best as it can in a small form factor, basically essentially a 3/4 scale replica of the actual arcade game. Well, obviously if you have to put your cell phone on there and hope that it interconnects with Bluetooth and all that, you're not really being true to the spirit of the game. Now, it didn't bother me that much because I am not a purist at all. As long as the game looks slick and is basically within the theme of the original arcade game, I am okay with it, but I know a lot of people aren't. So finally, looks like we're going to be able to order this game. So let me give you some positives why I am excited about this announcement. And the first one is, it is Dragon's Lair, it is Space Ace, and they are great games. They are some of the classic games that at least someone from my generation, Generation X, really does think of when you think about arcade games. Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Space Ace. It's one of those games that could absolutely wow somebody once they come over to your home arcade. And as COVID seems to be fading into the dustbin of history, fingers crossed, more and more people will be opening up their home arcades that they've been building up over the past 2 and 3 years to their friends and family and maybe co-workers and things like that. And having a Dragon's Lair game be in your home arcade will definitely have that kind of wow effect, at least for certain people. So, and I am definitely one of those people. So hey, they're great games and they absolutely do deserve a cab of their own. Second reason why I really think this is an interesting cab is the fact is Arcade1up hasn't really announced a whole lot of new games coming out in the year 2022. Now, that's not really a surprise if you think about how many games came out in 2021. I mean, everything from the Infinity Gaming Table to the Babycade to the Projectorcade to new countercades like the Defender one, a whole bunch of new titles in a 3/4 scale lineup, just game after game after game, a whole lot of new titles. 2021 really was a huge year for Arcade1up in terms of new cab announcements. If you are really looking to get a new title into your arcade and you want an Arcade1up game, Dragon's Lair might actually be one of the few choices that we have, at least in the first half of 2022. Lastly, John D has already said on other shows that he expects this game to be a true replica of the arcade experience in terms of the gameplay itself. Now, when you are playing Dragon's Lair, say on something like an iArcade, it is an Android version. It is essentially the same game that you might have seen ported on something like a PlayStation or an Xbox. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it isn't exactly arcade real. The other part of that is that you would expect if he's promising a sort of more true arcade experience, that they took the criticisms to heart about the cell phone and maybe some other little problems, and hopefully that will all be combined into one super cab. A lot of people are hoping, fingers crossed, that it will either be a Pro line cab or an XL cab. So we'll see a really, really kicking, beautiful version of Dragon's Lair played exactly the way you would have played it in the arcade. But for all of the positives that this game could have, there are in fact a whole lot of things that we don't know. That would be my first con, is we really don't truly know what the design of the cab is going to be. Is it going to be more or less your standard kind of old school, the first render that we saw of the game? Or are we going to see it in a big boy version? Are we going to see the XL cab, a Pro Series cab? Are we going to see something more along the lines of Tron, where they know it's going to have a certain amount of super fans that are going to jump on into that cab as long as it looks super slick? Presuming it is, this isn't necessarily a con, but the reality is right now when you go to their website, it has not been updated with new photographs. We really don't know. For instance, is the screen size going to be bigger? 17 inches is probably okay for Dragon's Lair, but I would rather have it be 19 inches, and we just don't know the dimensions of the screen. The cab, we don't know for sure that the cell phone thingy's been replaced or not. So there are some questions that need to be answered. I'm guessing that this con basically flips over to a positive when we find out for sure as we get closer to June. But for right now, it's at least a question mark that has me going, I don't think I can pre-order. The second con, and it's pretty much kind of tied to the first con, is how much is this thing going to cost? Is it going to cost $400, and maybe the smaller version or whatever, or is it going to be, are we looking at a $600 or a $700 cab? I don't know that, particularly as inflation continues to grow and gas prices and all that kind of stuff, if people are going to be quite as willing to spend $700 on a cab that might only have 2 games, probably no more than 3. That is an awful lot of dough for those games. The last con is just a reality that Arcade1up, I'm sure, has done a lot of hard thinking on, and that's the fact that iArcade has already offered a very kickin' version of their Dragon's Lair cab with very good versions of Space Ace, Dragon's Lair, and Dragon's Lair 2 on there already. In fact, the entire reason why I picked up the iArcade is because it does have Dragon's Lair in Space Ace on there, and I was able to get it at the Christmas blowout price of $300. Now that's not skinned, there's nothing special about it. There are a lot of negatives about that iArcade cab when compared to either other multi-cades like the At Games ALU or towards branded cabs like Arcade1up puts out. But again, I'm not a purist. Your mileage might vary on that, but the reality is you can get a very nice branded cab from iArcade that will play not just Space Ace and Dragon's Lair 2, but all of the other games that already come included on the game, and of course your ability to buy more games down the line, which is a big advantage that it will have over the Dragon's Lair Space Ace cab that comes out of Arcade1up. I don't know, what do you guys think? Are you at all interested in pre-ordering Dragon's Lair when it is available in June? Or are you like me and you already have the game in some other format, either on an Xbox or PlayStation, or like I do on the iArcade? Let me know what you think down below. I really am interested because this is one of the few new titles that we are probably going to see in 2022 from Arcade1up. All right, so that's going to wrap up this episode. I hope you like this sort of content. If you do, give me a thumbs up on the way out the door. It really does help the channel. Please subscribe to us if you haven't. Let's love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah! Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much more.